Hello, people. Today here, Fanny and I interviews. I have Dali again from Cordial Curiosity, but today in a more personal level, we're going to talk about sexuality and go over all the subjects. And I asked him to invite, and he offered as well to invite his partners. And please, thank you very much for coming, Dali. Introduce your family.
This is Foyle. Yeah, and this is Kimberly. And off screen is Naya. You can't see her right now because she is sleeping. Anyway, let's see. I think Foyle and I have been together for.
Well, we had kind of two different.
Yeah. We were together from like 02 through some, I don't remember, and then back together like around 08 or something like that. And then
it was before 08. That's when I showed up.
Right, just
right.
Before,
right. You
so
showed up in 08.
It was probably just a year before that.
Yeah,
the second time
probably. And then Naya joined us 11 years ago, something like that. I'm a little unclear.
Kimberly's 11. Naya's more like 10.
Okay.
Thank you very much, guys, for coming. And yeah, just to let people know, I had a conversation yesterday with Dali all about the street epistemology, and I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
I'll cut this up. No problem.
That's fine.
Mommy,
Yes,
I found
Mom.
a book.
You found a boat?
No, it's
A book?
A
Beep,
bug?
beep.
Oh, a bus.
But
She doesn't pronounce
A
S yet.
yellow book,
Mhm.
A
Mommy.
yellow bus. Okay, listen. Mommy is having that conversation with Cordial now, okay?
Okay.
So I
Bye-bye,
need you to
Mommy.
bye, my love. Thank you. Okay, you stay there. Can you close the door, please?
Bye, Mom.
Oh.
Bye.
More family introduction.
R2's father. This is Miles.
This is the grandpa.
Oh, look at that beauty. Oh yes, they are all so handsome.
Yeah.
I love.
This is his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of the
Scary.
noise, you said something about the crows and the roosters. The roosters are very noisy. When I had,
Very noisy, yes.
oh yeah, I remember when I had them in Brazil, a few mornings that I wanted to sleep a little longer was almost painful, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't like my roosters just at this moment. So I'm sorry. So what I wanted to tell people is the reason we're here to talk about a lot on sexuality. So we're going to cover the basic concepts and try to go through LGBTQ, trans, poly, and you guys here more to speak a little bit more about the polyamorous relationship that I personally have curiosity, and also think that for community and society wise, it's important as to break down taboos as family structure is like this, and everybody that doesn't fit into it will just feel they are wrong or be judged. And maybe even a little bit further on talking about the politics and say maybe politics should not have nothing to do with marriage, with relationships. It should be more a individual contract, level. Then government will tell you you cannot get married to more than one person, even if you want, even if they are all consensual. This, I think, there are many things around this. We're probably going to spend like an hour and a half or more together.
Okay.
So thank you very much for coming.
As long as it doesn't impede watching humans go to space this afternoon.
Yes, we're going to stop before that. You want to announce
for
it?
all of you, you've seen it. You already know what happened. But so
Yeah.
far, we're about a little over an hour and a half from Doug and Bob going to space. So I'm all distracted and excited because rockets and human spaceflight are my sports ball, and SpaceX is my home team.
Is that the first time Elon Musk sends people to space?
Yes. This will be the first time that SpaceX
any
sends
commercial
people.
company has anyone commercial has sent humans to space.
Yeah, that is really exciting for sure. So yeah, we're all gonna check. unhappily, this video is going to be later after the, but I can put a little card here linking to the video so people can actually find out and watch it
Sure.
as well.
Yeah.
So, guys, one of these first subjects that I think is really important to talk about sexuality, and I think because of all your experience and having more heads to think together, it's easier for us to talk about those concepts that seem to be very misunderstood and mixed together on the conversation nowadays, is biological sex versus gender identity versus sexual preference, that I was trying to explain to you before the recording, that nowadays we have more than 80 different sexualities because people are trying to categorize those things in multi-layers and make different gender or different sexualities every now different question of these three subjects and combinations. So I don't know if you guys have any different concept of this, but I wanted to present to at least to my audience my opinion of those things and how we should not mix all together, you know, because I think the biological sex is something that is very related to the genitalia and to your genotype, because we understand that sometimes the genitalia doesn't represent the genotype, the genes of the person. So we have people that can look like female and be a male, and vice versa. But basically, the biological sex would be defined by the genitalia and a genotype or a study of the genes of the person. So we have, it's not a dichotomy because it's not just man and woman. It's not a real dichotomy, I would say. It's like a female or not female, men or not men. But I do think it is a dichotomy when we put in the sense of it's man, woman, or something else. And this something else would be a variation of what we expect in nature. So we can have hermaphrodites, we can have Morris that looks like a female but is a XY that doesn't have womb. So there are so many other variations of the nature that would be the middle column, or you know, this middle ground.
I'd like to put in that, first of all, I probably have a pretty different way of looking at poly than most people do. Mine's really focused on the emotional, on the romantic, and the family structure. And I'm being a nonconformist in that area. I'm looking to have the people I can most interact with like-mindedly, all close at hand. I don't very much go out and date other people. I bring people to me with whom I'm in relationship. And your points are valid, but additionally, I think sex is largely based on pleasure centers, which are not gender identified. They're just human or mammalian.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that is. Sorry, I have some echo here. That's definitely something that I agree with you, because the level of the discussion is to try to put these three concepts together and try to layer them and give a concept of sexuality. And for sure, I do recognize, I think the idea of poly is something that doesn't define any of those concepts. You say you're poly, you don't know if it's you're man or woman, if what is your personal identity, if you define yourself as man or woman, or which one is your sexual preference. Is definitely it's a performative way of a family. It's in another category than sexuality. It's inside, but it's in another level. So I would say that I was trying to present the genitalia and the genotype as a different thing as gender identity, because now I can be a woman and say, wow, but I feel more like a man, or I feel more like asexual. I don't feel like I have a gender at all. Okay. And those are already two different things that sometimes people try to put together. So yeah, we have stopped defining that men want to have sex with women when we accepted that, yeah, there are people that don't want to have sex with the different sex, and yes, with the same. It was when we accepted homosexuality, heterosexuality, and that would be the other level that I still don't think that is personal identity, because I think I can still be a woman defined as a man and want to have sex with another man. And people would say, "Wow, so you are a heterosexual?" Yes, my sexual preference is still consonant cis to my gender, even if my gender identity, it's, I feel more like a male. And I think we talked a little bit about this, Dali, the other day when we were not recording, because I said there were a few things I learned and I enter or title myself later when I learned they had names, because I kind of felt a little bit like that. Was the queer. When first day we were talking just about the street epistemology and we decided to make this video about sexuality, was because farther in the middle of the conversation, Dali said, "I have an agenda." And I was like, "You have an agenda?" And he's like, "Yeah, because I'm queer." I was like, "What? Are you queer? You don't look queer. What?" And then he came, he's like, "I'm poly, I'm married I have a husband and 2 wives." And 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 I came to tell him, he's like, "Wow, I always felt like a queer in the sense that I was a girl, very girly, very vain, like to look like a girl. But the conversation subjects and dealing and getting along, I never did this well with other girls. I was always in the back of the group, on the back seats on the room, the class, and hanging out with guys and talking about guy stuff, and never liked playing with dolls or anything. And so I was like, no, I have something wrong with me. I don't really feel like totally a girl completely." And when I found out, oh, there is such a thing as queer, it's like, you know what? I might be that type of person, because I feel a lot like more mainly on my subjects, on the things I like, my interests. I like playing video games. I used to like playing with guys and not play with dolls and girls. That was like my childhood, my teenagehood. Every time I was hanging out with groups that were mixed, never was able to get along with groups of only girls. And even my friends in university were 3 guys. Our group was called by the rest of the class, we were the Fantastic Four, because it was me and 3 guys. And everybody, and then themselves would say like, "Fanny, you need to make girlfriends because it's healthy. You need to talk about girl stuff." And I was like, "No, I don't miss that. I don't really need. But yeah, sure, I'm gonna go hang out with girls, make girlfriends, because I think you guys are more interested to hang out with me with having girlfriends to present to you." But it's not something that I ever missed, and I had kept maybe 2 or 3 best girlfriends from childhood that I get along and we talk sometimes, but it was really hard for me. So the same thing with the poly, that I had felt like maybe I like more than one person. Maybe I feel like I love more than one guy at the same time. And I was always the wrong, because you're supposed to behave like this and live like this and have a family that is man, woman, and kids. And I think it's important, the conversation about poly, to normalize for the people that do not conform and do not fit the conformity, to not feel wrong, to feel that no, there is other ways. We are evolved enough to understand that some people are monogamic, some people are polygamic. And I don't agree with the government coming and tell people how they have to live. And you're not allowed to get married to more than one person, even if you want, even if you're all consensual. That is just crazy too.
Isn't it interesting that we live in a society where in childhood we're told that the adventurer and the explorer is the thing we should aspire to, and then everybody around us, when we begin to explore it, tells us, no, you should be safe.
Yeah, it's sad. And the safety measures the thing they don't recognize is that the safety measures are completely arbitrary. So anybody can come to power and make it different. The other day, trying to talk to people saying that they think that I should be forced to wear masks. And I was like, well, someone can come and say, like, you should go to church and pray. to make, oh, something happened here, my screen, sorry.
We have unlimited minutes now.
Oh, that's
Yay.
really nice.
Yes.
Cool. I think I'm
It's
talking
minutes
using Zoom
changed
a
to
lot.
Zoom.
It's like prizes you get, milestones.
I think it's actually relating to the quarantine. They have removed the more than two-person 40-minute video limit.
Mm.
I was hoping it was the Zoom gods smiling on us.
Maybe it is.
See, yeah. So I don't know. Do you guys have any different opinion about these three subjects of biological sex, gender identity, and sexual preference? You know, it's really interesting because yeah. Please.
I do have not answering what you just asked, but I do have another thing I just on what we were talking about earlier about the word queer. I still use it as unusual from I think its original manifestation. So I personally identify as queer most times when I'm asked, not because I prefer same gender sex, but because I don't want people telling me what to do sexually. I want to be whatever turns me on, whatever. Well, the big thing that always turns me on is the other person's turn on. So if I see somebody really in a state of zeal over their romance and perhaps their sexuality, I'm just going to hone in on that and head for that.
You're very emotional.
Oh yeah,
attached. Yeah.
I can speak to the question of sex, gender, and the third category was. I'll speak to sex and gender first, and I'll remember the third one.
Sex, gender, and sexual preference. Yeah.
Right, and preferences. Thank you. For me, sex is a physical thing. If I would say that strictly speaking, a male is a person who can participate in fathering a child, and a female is a person who can participate in mothering a child. And then I'm perfectly willing to extend that to people who haven't or couldn't but otherwise would, kind of thing. And then there's and those are two modes that are very clear in the data set. Almost everybody follows into those two modes. And then there's a big, like, I see a bunch of area in the hermaphrodite, meaning having both capabilities or parts of both capabilities, and then there's another category of having neither. And if I put a scatter shot, it's like dots all over the place, with most of them clustering in these two places. So it's modally binary, but it's not strictly binary in terms of physical sex. And then physical sex is mostly about your relationship with your doctor, I think, or your relationship with your partner who has a preference for particular body parts, particular genitalia. Okay, fine. And if you have a partner who's not attracted so much to the genitalia but to the person, then it matters much less. Then the question of gender, I see gender as the public expression of things that usually fall into that category. Usually we associate some kinds of expressions in some societies as being the female or the male. Like in the Western society, mostly men don't kiss men, but men and women kiss. Mostly that's the case. And so where does gender come into that? I always want to give any person the option of telling me what their name is and me not arguing about it, telling me what their goals and aspirations are and me not arguing about that. If these are subjective opinions, I don't want to argue with them. And I could have somebody who's trans and to me doesn't look anything like, nothing about them invokes what they say they are. And I say, okay, that's kind of okay.
Yeah.
Kimberly there is not so much politically, but just physically and expression-wise very androgynous. And this isn't a political thing for her. This is just how she is. And so I don't think it's a question of identity, but other people would say she's maybe gender androgynous, kind of female, kind of uncertain, and
I get butchie thrown at me, a bunch of different.
yeah. Now, as far as sexual preferences, love who you want. And my sexual preference might be ginger. No, that's not actually the case. But the point is, it wouldn't necessarily tie to genitalia. It might be a lot more about how you present yourself. I might be wildly attracted to extroverts or something. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just giving examples. And to the same degree, I would not want to constrain anybody's expression of gender or argue with them about it. I also would not ever want to argue with somebody over their sexual preferences. So I think you are going to talk about pederasty, and that's a different question. And I have opinions.
You'll argue then.
Yeah, no, yeah. While we were talking, I kind of like reshaped some ideas here that I had about this, because I think you bringing up the person in the third, the external, like people looking at you and identifying you as something different of what you are. I don't think that actually makes your identity. That is something interesting, but definitely because for me, the biological sex, as we said about genitalia and genetic code, would be something that is definitely only that the definition of it only lays on the first person, very specific evidence. We talk about evidence. It's not even about opinion. We're looking the genitalia and we're looking at the genetic code, and this is all laying down on reality, and it's not performative. It's all descriptive. We go check the genitalia, check the gender, the genetic code, and find out what is the biological sex of this person, man or woman. Okay, or we
how does
could
the
end
doctor
up
need to treat them?
Yeah, if in case of hermaphrodites, can be more complicated because we would be seeing both genitals when they are born, and that comes to the parents to decide usually which gender they will choose for their kid, if he's going to be, which sex they are going to choose to pick for their kids. Usually is the way that works. Now, talking about the gender identity, it is more performative because, like you said, it could be I was the type of girl that would like be vain and looking like very girly, but I would be very tough and rough and walk with guys. And some people was like, "What? You're like so weird because you look like a girl, but you're so butchy." I can't say said. And I remember during a period of my life, like teenagehood, that I was very confronted by this behavior and this look. And I would tell people, "Oh, I don't care about what you guys say. If I had spent a little bit more time in my mom's belly, I probably would grow a penis." That was my joke back to people that would call me manly girl.
You bring up a really good point on something that's been, boiling up in me as the conversation goes forward. Everything it takes to be all the way on one side male or all the way on the other side female is in every one of us. And Dali's the sciencey guy, so if I fail someplace, help me out. It's a control feature of our genes and cells to decide what components to bring forward, but none of the components are banished. They're all still in us. So the whole notion of needing to nail down all these alphabetical or numerical identifiers is just to keep people's psyches secure, rather than, I'd like to acknowledge that we are all sensational, meaning we want sensation, people who are all aspects of male and female and get to choose to be identified, called, seen as whatever the hell we want.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think there is a more important conversation farther on the line back about this is the trans issues and when to start or when to allow people to start doing the transition, because that is the new issue inside the community. The LGBT community wants to push the more people that are trans, trying to push the transition earlier in life, letting kids do transition sometimes too early, and there is no reversion of it. And that is the problem of, like, we know how we change mind throughout life. We are old now, but you guys even more than me, but probably have more experience on that. And I have experienced myself changing my mind about things that you cannot change later. So that is the issue of letting kids start as early as 3, 4, 5, 6 years old trans, because they just perform, and that is the point. Because I have had cousins, that girl cousins, that when they were 3, 4 years old, and even my daughter at a year ago, she did not want to wear dresses, and I was fine with that. Okay, but pants, but shorts. There are parents that actually believe this is my daughter saying that she wants to be a man, and I should start transitioning her with hormones and everything, hormonal therapy at this age. And that is the craziness that we have to encounter nowadays. And I'm very for less government and less regulations, but I do recognize we need to protect our kids from crazy parents.
Do you like my opinion on this?
Yeah,
Please.
sure.
Okay. Our society, going back 1,000 years or more, has moved forward choices that become laws. And we have in this country an age of majority, but we have a previous age of iffy majority, which is 14. When you turn 14, you are considered more an adult, more capable of making your own decisions. And now I'm going to put myself out on the internet, or you are, so I'm putting myself out on the limb here, but I firmly believe that nobody should make life-altering decisions before the court system says that it's legal for us to make life-changing decisions. So I'm all for start looking at what's going to happen to change your life for the rest of your life. Maybe someday they'll be able to reverse things, but they can't really do it now. Don't do it till you're 14. And parents who care about their kids and want them to grow into the best result of genetic combining might want to go with that too. That's my opinion.
Great point.
Jamie Lee Curtis is my favorite example.
Oh, yes.
Tony Curtis and I'm not remembering his wife's name in this case, had baby Jamie Lee, and Jamie was born a hermaphrodite, undistinguishable. They on the knife edge couldn't tell, and parents said, "We're going to let her choose. Let Jamie choose," because maybe that was before they had pronouns worked out. And I think that is extra thumbs up. I think the idea that the parents should be able to choose for the child is open to a lot of potential corruption, a lot of problems.
Yes.
And so they said, we're not going to do anything that permanently forces Jamie's hand. And then Jamie grew up enough and decided to become very female and made a career out of it. Fantastic. She did a great job.
That is
I'm
amazing.
a fan. And I hope that parents would do that in general. I'm very much along the line of, even at 4 or 5, if a child wants to do something that is reversible, go for it. Enjoy. Have a great time. And I'm not convinced that 14 is the great number. I can't tell. I think it might be a case-by-case situation.
Sure.
But at some point, a person should be given the choice, and I think it's before 18. I think 18 is waiting far too long. Waiting until full adulthood is longer than is a good idea. And I'm going to ask the doctor about what those things are, because I don't know what's reversible and what isn't. I don't know what's going to have what kind of long-term effects. And I would only be willing to talk to doctors who were completely happy with whichever choice. I would not want to go to a doctor who has an agenda of, well, you look like a male, I think you're a male, so you're going to be a male. No, that's not it.
No, I think that is a great question, mainly because the strongest argument to do the early transition is to look more like the gender desired later. And I think that is only aesthetics. As a physician, I think that is a really weak argument. So, no, I think people should. There is no right time to do it. The right time to do it is after you are certain about this, and that's why I believe doesn't matter when you want to start your process. You should take a long period, like probably like 2 years of psychotherapy, and you have chance to change your mind and to to go through the hormonal treatment. And I know because going through this as public health service, it might take much longer than that, maybe even like up to 5-6 years. I'm talking about Brazil. In the United States,
it should, or is that just the case that it would? Which are you saying? Are you saying that's the desired result, or are you saying that's
I'm fine with stretching for that long.
Okay.
I'm fine with stretching for that long because we have a lot of people transitioned that regret it, and we cannot do the reverse process.
How many? What sort of
that is a good question. I
regret?
don't know if we want to check on data. We could check on different places. You might.
I'll look at it later.
Yeah. I know it is
if I find
important.
Something, I'll send you a link.
I know I've heard that it's an important number, mainly including related to suicide rates.
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, depression, suicide rates.
And if I've got a suicide rate argument on both sides, maybe there's a way to find a balance.
If there is a
find the minimum in the
higher
curve,
risk,
that might be really nice. Yeah.
That is definitely one thing that we compare. That is like not definitely only the risk of suicide in each community, but what we call risk, relative risk. If there is any community that have higher risk than others, in the case would be like if the transgender people that have transition show more risk of suicide than the LGBT community in general. That would be more towards to speak against early or easy transition.
I have a friend who's actually in Hawthorne working at SpaceX, handling the video right now that I'm not watching in the moment. This is Jamie is the principal video engineer for SpaceX. And she's transitioning. And she would actually be my first reference. She's the first person I would ask about these questions because she knows so much and has such a good handle on data and being realistic and scientific and engineering kind of about it. So I would ask her. And of course, if you would like to ask her, I'll be happy to try to put you guys in touch
Definitely.
later. Today, she's really busy, so it's not happening. I cannot interrupt her today.
But it would be a pleasure. Please do it.
Yeah. I will try to connect you.
But yeah, the closest person I follow on this subject, on the trans issues, is Blair White, that I presented to you the last time, the conversation we were now recording. She usually is just exposing people, denouncing people online that are like the last time I showed you the trans in Turkey trying to tell people to get fake accounts on Grindr and denounce gay men that would be in the closet around society. And
publicly outing gay men in a place where it's illegal and
they're going to go to jail
stuff. And that's just like that is so the LGBT community eating its own. It's like, oh, that's so bad, just cringes me. I can't feel.
She also exposed a lot of people on that more talking about the transition in early ages, or parents trying to manipulate or kids and use kids to fight each other and say like, I don't know if you heard last year there was a boy that the mom wanted to put him through transition. He's like 6 or 7, and it was totally just because of a emotional dispute with the father.
Yikes.
How do we know the motivation?
Oh,
How do we
she
know that
was.
it was just that?
They caught in video or recording her talking about. Oh, he really wants a boy. I'm gonna make it become a girl, something like that.
Mm. Yeah, I have a real problem with that. That whole
And
idea
even
of
the-
like when to start. I don't think a child can even know from like 4 through 8 or 9 or 10. I don't know what your age.
What that is
Whether it's
actually,
their opinion or their parents' opinion. I don't think they can tell their opinion from their parents.
good point.
So that's, how could I tell? Now, maybe a psychologist has a way to
Yeah,
figure
I was
that out.
going to say like they don't know what that is. What is the practical applicability of changing your gender, your sexuality at this age, because you do not know what is to be a female or man, to be a man or woman at this age.
Yeah.
So what is to make you decide you want to be a man or you want to be a woman? They think like, oh, it's performative of what my mom or my father does. They do not even understand sexuality to make this choice. But your argument, I think, is the most important, is the strongest one, because what is the limit? What is the line we draw on? Where is the kid's opinion solely, or is parents telling them to do something?
What age would we allow people to choose to sterilize themselves? I think
irreversibly.
We have laws about this.
Because
yeah,
we can sterilize reversibly.
Yeah, if you can sterilize reversibly, it's not a problem. Like a vasectomy or
the vasectomy, I think men can do it around. I think the age is for men. The men not necessarily have to have kids, but the girls have, and the age I think is 25. I'm not sure about the United States, but in Brazil, it's you have to be 25 and you have to have at least 2 kids for a woman to get her sterilization through public health.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty restrictive. My son-in-law, the husband of my oldest daughter, had a vasectomy and has been unsuccessful in reversing it when they wanted to have kids. Yeah. So even when it's theoretically reversible, that's not any kind of guarantee. And I think the transition and sterilization are similar enough that you might use the same age for that. I think transition does lead to sterilization. Am I correct that that is true? That if you transition, you are effectively going to be, actually I'm thinking of an example. I know a hermaphrodite from years ago.
If you actually transition from man to woman, and going through all the, I'm talking about people like Blair White that did the complete transition. Yeah, I don't think she can have kids anymore as man or a woman, because she doesn't have a womb. So now she cannot have kids, basically.
Yes.
But it still can. I think that thing on having kids is something that a lot of people already have gone over it. Nowadays, you see a lot of young people that already know they don't want to have kids.
Yeah. Well, we're on this subject, a little bit off topic, just something I like to bring up.
Sure, go ahead.
As far as men making themselves safe to not make babies, rather than, I've forgotten the term. We're going sterilization. I'm focused on that, but rather than having our vas snipped, there's an alternative that has been very thoroughly tested out, both in Canada and in India, and so far hasn't caught on, but it's called RISUG, RISUG, and it's an injection of styrene into the vas. And you know how styrofoam ice chests, if you put them together, they squeak? Well, they might look smooth, but microscopically, they're very jagged. And with that in the vas, it's 100% destructive to the sperm going through. So, and it's a simple procedure. You walk in, a nurse puts a glove on, grasps your scrotum, our scrotum, whatever, and injects with a needle from the outside into the vas the styrene, and then anytime that you want to have it reversed, they inject a solvent and it goes away, and you are actually much more likely to impregnate for a while after the reversal. It's cheap and easy, and that's probably the reason it hasn't caught on, because the pharmaceutical companies really don't like that.
Wow. Yeah, never heard of anything like that, but it's impressive. It sounds almost magical. So yeah, totally out of the context. but no, I don't think I'm not sure about this issue on the sterilization on transgender people. For me, definitely it is for important when you think about the people that would want to reverse, if it's a girl that have gone through the hormonal therapy and would like later to go back to girl mode and have kids. If I'm not really sure if that would stop her from being fertile unless she has gone through surgeries and really surgical sterilization, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The idea of the men doing the early transition, I do think so, because then we're talking about boys stopping and this early as 3-4, because is that early that the hormones start being produced, and of course they are going to kick much later, but they are trying to start doing the hormonal therapy or in pausing the normal development of the boys, and then later when they want to do it, it's too late. You can't reverse. That would be the worst problem for the guys that go through the transition more than the girls that go through transition in talking about the reversibility. And the point of the parents deciding, as Dali said, I think is, for me, is the same thing. I talked to someone another day, and the person told me but the parents have to decide, because the parents are, the kids are like property. They do not know, so the parents have to decide for them. And my point was I don't think parents and kids, they are two different beings. So I don't think there is such a property over other people's bodies in any way. I believe more the parents are caregivers, and that's why if you're not taking care of your kid properly, there is the government to come and take your kid away from you and give to some family that will take care of it in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think when you mention about pushing as far to let the person decide, I think it is the more reasonable and rational way to approach the problem with hermaphrodites, with transgender. It's always let the person know, but for sure try to push farther for this person to be sure about that, because and always point out how there is no way, or there is way, but it's not gonna be effective way to reverse it, So yeah, I think we're over this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's one other aspect I'd like to bring along here, and that's that I haven't seen that our the people that steer our society for us, government and education, has done a lot of work on studying how it's my opinion that hormones affect the way that we think as we develop male or female, and that males think a way and females think a way, and I see very little effort being made, and I think it's a real problem, to teach all of us how each other think. If we understood, if I, as a man, understood fully how a woman thought, or approximately how a woman thought, I know it's a big cloud of differences, but basically understood how women thought, and women understood how I thought, we'd have a lot more conversations that didn't end in slammed doors.
Definitely. But there is no such a thing, because what I hear from a lot of people, mainly when we talk about this thing on gender identity and performance, I see most of girls, like the girls that I know, and I think they're pretty girly when they make these comments, is the problem because sometimes they don't have a boyfriend or find a guy is because, oh, guys behave like this and I don't like the way they behave. Okay, well, let's say they don't give me enough attention, they just want to go drink beer and play with his friends. Okay, so that's the problem. So now we find a guy that is very romantic and give you all the time and attention you need and you want, and then they come to complain that I don't like this guy because he's too cheesy, he's too whatever, and that becomes the problem. It's like, well, I thought that was what you wanted.
Yes, I'm tortured by being a pirate and a nice guy.
Yeah, relationship is very complicated. And talking about relationship in general, let's leave the trans issues and LGBTQ. Polyamorous relationship, it's not different from a monogamic relationship in question about jealousy. That is my question, because how
Okay,
is to
question,
be
okay.
jealous? What is to be in a poly? How is the jealousy and how does it work?
You seem
You or
ready
me
to
first?
say something, Dali.
Sure. Okay, I'll start. I think jealousy, my view on jealousy is that it is a fear of loss. It is a fear of loss of status, a fear of loss of relationship. And if I could be very jealous because my partner is spending time away from me talking in a book club, okay, having nothing to do with sex, I could be jealous of that. I wouldn't necessarily call it jealous. I would say, oh, I'm lonely, I'm not getting enough attention, or I'm afraid of something, or how, whatever, but I wouldn't call it jealousy. But if it involves sex, I would call it jealousy. Okay. So if we separate those things and say, I don't care, I don't mind, maybe I even go so far as to embrace that my partner going and having some fun with somebody else is a good thing for them and even for me. Then I bring up a new term called compersion. I think that's a term that the poly community started up, but it's in the dictionary now, so I don't know. Compersion is sort of like the other side of the coin from jealousy. It's the pleasure I get from watching somebody I love enjoying themselves, having a good time, while I'm just observing. I'm not actually part of the thing. It might be that they really like bowling, and so I'm compersive about their bowling. In a poly situation, I think we look at that with sex as well. In poly, cheating is not about sex, it's about lying. And if you ever want to really piss off a poly person, the best way to do it is try to date one of their partners in secret.
Yeah.
That will get them the most jealous and angry you can ever imagine.
Or worse, sad.
Yes, indeed. So really, it's just taking one thing that's usually held as an exclusive relationship and saying, this doesn't have to be exclusive as long as I don't lose it. It's okay if you read books with other people. It's okay if you go bowling with other people. It's okay if you go sleep with other people. That's fine with me. And of course, there's safe sex questions. A good condom contract is really important. So that it's even a lot more important because I'm not just risking me, I'm risking my other partners as well. So it multiplies the risk if I'm regularly sexually active with a tight little group of people when we're not having sex, not having safe sex with each other, then the exposure is a much bigger deal. Okay.
The thing that I want to add in here is that we're sort of making it sound as though poly is purely a different choice and it's just a easy thing, but relationship isn't easy. Communication really isn't easy. Dali has a system that he's working on that makes it perhaps somewhat easier, but
epistemology is a good tool.
But my simplification of this that I like to say is that monogamy is complicated and polyamory is complicateder.
More people.
That's a good one, a good way to explain. I think the poly is in focus. I mentioned to Dali I wanted to bring this up because I've seen some big YouTubers that I follow punching down some examples of polyamorous relationships that have been in the media recently. There was a case of a lady with 3 guys and she decided to have kids, and one of the guys abused the kid. And of course, everybody now is taking this example, this family, as to punch the idea of a polyamorous relationship as like, oh, it's something bad. See these people, how they behave, the way they live. And I think that is really bad because you can find bad examples of everything. You can find bad atheists, religious people, monogamic couples, parents, and whatever. So I wanted to talk about this because I think the same way that we want to break down taboos, there are people that want to bring myths to fight those ideas.
Yeah.
And I never thought people were strictly that humans are naturally monogamics, because what I've seen my whole life is like people trying to be, but most of people failing on it. And I think that is what you kind of like ignore, what most of people ignore. That's like, look, this model that a lot of people keep telling, like, this is the family structure that we all have to follow. It's like, okay, but it's not working. And why it's not working? When I went through med school and psychiatry, I was really fascinated by psychiatry. I still feel like maybe one day I'll end up like doing some residence or talking about this and sexology. And it's very into what the things I talk about. But I remember an old professor in psychiatry that would say, people are not monogamic. And I was like, yeah, that is true. I believe this period was when I went through the philosophizing more about relationships and humans in general and nature, because I think we see few examples of animals, parrots, araras love to be monogamic, and we think that is the way. But if you look through our civilization and society and people and anthropology, you see that people gather together and live in very tribalist societies and communities. And it's not because they did not have house and could live apart. It's like, no, because people are naturally like that. They like to live like that in communities. And I think what we should recognize is that there is no humans or mono or poly. I think people are different. I think I would not even say like a half, but there is a proportion that a lot of people do not fit. And maybe it's like 40%. Is that 40% the rate of failing on monogamic relationships and marriage? I think is that it's close.
No, higher than that.
50
Is
or
that
more.
high?
Yeah.
It depends on the
last
time and everything. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I heard that it was 70%, and you know, that
Yeah, we would
eventually,
have to check the data.
right.
But
So
anyways,
it's
Yeah.
the number is not important. But the point for
Significant,
me is
very
like
significant.
it is
Yeah.
significant, and we understand that this number is underrated too. It's underestimated
Right.
as well.
Okay.
Because you have a lot of people that cheat, do not break up and keep in their relationship with. Like, and for me, at that point when I started thinking of relationships, I was like, look, most of people probably are having polyamorous relationship. They're
Yes.
just not telling the
But
other
we call it
person.
serial monogamy.
Yeah. Or cheating. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people
Yeah.
do that. So why not accept the idea of the polyamorous relationship that has the beauty of dropping off the cheating part? Because if you are consensual,
Right.
you're not cheating anymore. So for
Right.
me at that point was when I like, Eureka, I found the answer. It's just like, just don't be monogamic. You avoid the bad part, because relationship is awesome. What is the bad part? Oh, the bad part is exactly what Dali said: the fear of losing, the insecurity, the jealousy. So
Here's another bad part.
if you actually accept that you're not going to lose anything, or wait a minute, would you not lose anyways, even if you impede the person to do it,
Yeah.
what they want? So it's not better to just
That can
take
be
care of our garden and let the butterflies free, and they will be coming back.
Yes.
Like there is such an expression in Portuguese that's kind of like sounds like this, and I think that is definitely the beauty of relationships. And I think beautiful relationships are like that. The rest is a little bit forced.
I want to say religion and government likes to have control, and ecstasy is next to impossible to control. So you're putting forth that ecstasy would be a better path, but throughout our entire history, the people who want to control us say, no, don't use drugs that make you feel good. Don't have a society that makes you feel good. Don't watch too much TV that makes you feel good. Let's have some horror. So there is a reason why the butterflies being free is not promoted. And we also have massive movement towards communication and discovery. You bring up psychology or psychiatry, I mean, it's 150 years old. It's a speck. We had, smart people like Dali hundreds of years ago telling us what they thought was the best way to go, but it wasn't a system. This is other partner.
A bathroom run.
Other
You'll see her
partner.
later. Not so.
She's gonna run away because she's not at her best.
Oh, no problem. Hope she gets better soon.
Us too.
So yeah, guys, amazing conversation. One of the things, I don't really need to go much through the issues and rights and bigotry, but I do agree with you about government wants to control us, and it's just silly. There is not even need. The reason of one of the things I wanted to talk is I don't agree with government giving putting laws on how many people you can get married to. In Brazil, it is outlaw marrying to more than one person. And I don't know, how is that in the United States? Is that too? Is that like that too?
You can't be married to more than one person in the United States. They made a big deal about that with Utah joining the union back when Utah became a state, and the Mormons had polygamy, and that became an absolute cut, even to the point where the Mormon church disavowed polygamy and reversed their theology on it, and now even deny that it was the case, which is kind of
It depends on what sect you're listening to.
Yeah.
Right. There's
I
a lot
have friends in different church, and they're Mormon too, but they have a different belief on that. There's the separation from church and state because they don't think the state ought to be able to tell them.
Yeah. So in the Mormon case, it was one man, multiple women.
Right.
And in our case, we are not sexist like that. It's whatever.
We're actually not sexist at all. An asexual person can be in a polyamorous
Sure.
relationship.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, I lost my track.
Sorry.
That's
No,
all
that's
right.
fine.
I think we all interrupted you.
So the four of us, none of us are legally married because we would not want to make one subset of us more legit than the others in the eyes of the state
law.
or something like that.
Mhm.
So we are all technically single and cohabitating and living in sin.
You have to be all the way over here to get seen.
It's
Holding
okay if she
hands with
doesn't show
somebody
up.
not on the screen.
It's okay. Yeah. In Brazil, you only can get married to one person as well. And before I thought much harder about politics, I would be fine, I guess, with this. I would be like, yeah, I would actually make jokes of people that would want to get married to more people because, like, wow, we were gonna have to change the laws, like as Mormons. I was like, how do the Mormons work here in Brazil? Because they cannot get married to more than one person. For me, it was a question how they live their lives over there. They might just live together and not even get married. But nowadays, I have thought a lot about politics and philosophy and relationship, and I just think government should not have nothing to do with people's relationship. I don't think you should have any law telling you how many people you can
So
get married.
would you be in favor of removing the tax
State.
and advantages of being married and perhaps the requirement for a divorce to dissolve a marriage?
Well, I think the state should have nothing to do with it in a way that any person that wants to get together, any people that want to get together, they just go to a lawyer, make a contract.
Mhm.
And in that way, the law can judge later the contract if there is any problem with it.
Right.
I'm being a bit of a difficult part of the conversation here, but your expression makes me wonder about the ancient form. And I'm a layperson, I don't know the rules, but my understanding of Judaism from 1,000 years ago that the women were considered women at 12 and the men were considered men at 13. And in our modern society, that would be considered child abuse, even if a parent allowed their children to get married at that age. But there was a point in which it was considered the age, or ages, because they recognized that women mature just a little bit faster than men.
Yeah, that is another conversation that I think we are ready to approach, is the pedophilia, because the other day when I was talking to someone talking about those consensus, is like, oh, this seems to be just like a bunch of guys or people sat in some room and decided this by themselves, completely arbitrary. For example, the age of consent for sex. But for me, there is a lot of data involved on those decisions when we set this type of limits, because for example, people during the colonization period, like 1500s, they would be getting married at this age, 12, 13, and procreating, because at this time, some girls can have their first period early as 9, sometimes 8, and they would be able to have kids, to get pregnant. But for me, when I talked to this person, I was pointing this as an example. Like, so people would do that in the past because they knew you just need to bleed to have kids, and as soon as you bleed, you're ready to get pregnant and have kids. But later we learned that when they do have sex and have kids this early age, we have is when medicine based in evidence became to exist, let's say, you know,
Yeah.
like, or that we would
Greater understanding.
we would understand. It's like, okay, that's fine, let's do it. And then 80% of kids would die from
Yes.
being pregnant early ages and into the wrong time.
Having the opening in the pelvis be too small to push a child through is hard on both mother and child.
Yeah. So with that knowledge, we step forward and like, okay, maybe it's not like when they have the bleeding, have the baby. And that's why the law comes to kind of tell people that do not know that to do it. They're like, no, you cannot do it, or you're going to have really high chance of killing your kids.
I'm not suggesting that we should. I'm not a pedophile, and I don't.
Oh,
think
no.
that we
I'm
need
just
to.
trying to.
I know, but I'm making a point here. It's okay. Thank you. But if we have a way to make all males at 8 years old not be able to pass sperm, therefore not having any opportunity except when the government regulated system says you can have it, to accidentally have children, then I think there's got to be some other things besides just pregnancy, because scientifically now we are capable of preventing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a strong bifurcation here. In one case, you're talking about evidence that it's harmful to the mother and the baby to start too early. I have a grandparent effect that I want to talk about with that. And on the other side, we find that there's psychological effect, significant psychological effect from people having adults having relationship with children has significant negative effect on the child, independent of whether pregnancy could occur. And so before I would be willing to back any adjustment in the age, I want to understand that role really well. And then that other thing I'm talking about, the grandparent effect. We have cut off the first 5 to 8 years of female reproduction that's potential. And if our lifespan is really short, well, we need that. We need that to maintain population. But that's not the case here. And we are effectively saying only those, and I'm going to speak to females specifically because the male age is much less important in this question. We are selecting for females who can reproduce themselves to the 2.5 or 3 number, whatever that is, that would be the replacement value, while having lost the first 5 to 8 years. So those we are selecting for women who can have babies longer, and we are also selecting for family structures that make the grandparents much more important in supporting those children as they go. And so if you know who your grandchildren are and you support those grandchildren, that support can lead your genome to work better. So if you live longer, your children will do better. And as a result, we humans are one of the few species that have a significant lifespan beyond our breeding age.
Yes.
Most animals don't have that.
Right.
We have gained that. And that's why the number for me is that most animals live 2.5 billion heartbeats. Heart rate is very similar to metabolic rate. So a mouse and an elephant have the same number of heartbeats, about 2.5 billion in their lifespan, and humans live 4 billion. So that grandparent effect is caused by our willingness to cut off the first few years of our reproduction. And I don't think we want to give that up lightly. I don't think we want to give up an evolutionary forcing function, a natural selection function that gives us individually longer lifespans. So there's my 3 arguments against lowering the age. And I'm perfectly willing to have the conversation about lowering the age, but you have to account for the psychological effects. You have to account for what you were talking about, the physical effects, the dangers to the mothers and the babies from going too early. And I also want to make sure that we have something that has taken a lot of generations to really take hold, the extension of our lifespan.
Yeah, I like your arguments. I'm not completely sure about the third one about the lifespan, because I would say that that has a lot to do with our development in technology and medicine.
Sure.
But I do would put that now as your argument as a part of an argument to increase the lifespan. That I something that's completely new to my knowledge. Like I've never heard that the to push the early ages of reproduction later would give us this advantage. But I would accept it. I would accept
Okay.
it.
I
Yeah,
learned it from Isaac Asimov.
that is really nice. I know him. Yeah.
He was a biochemist, a professor.
Yeah,
And so he has a lot of nonfiction, and that was part of his nonfiction work.
I'm sorry, just a second.
Please go ahead.
We're more than halfway gone, and I will let you guys go in maximum like 30 minutes, so you guys can prepare for the
Thank you.
launching. I'm
And
gonna
I'm
be
totally happy to reconnect.
How
at
are we
your
gonna
convenience.
watch? How are we gonna watch?
I'm gonna watch.
Are they broadcasting it on YouTube?
Yes, if I were to pull up another tablet, I would see that here they are. This is Bob and Doug in the hole and from the outside and like that.
Oh, they are
So that's how
broadcasting it.
I'm gonna watch. Yes, there's a live broadcast of the preparations
Wow.
that are going on, and in order to save bandwidth, I'm actually just leaving this paused, and I'll check in with it as we go.
That's
As far as at home, they're probably just gonna watch on their computers. Right now, I'm on the boat and they're at home.
Yeah.
We are about 20 minutes drive apart right now.
Oh, that is
You must drive
close.
faster than me. Oh, it's true.
I've gotten used to quarantine speeds.
Yes, it's true. Yes. Yeah, the old hour has become 20 minutes.
Yeah. LA traffic is like that.
But guys, you know what is the most important thing I need to talk about pedophilia in the case? Is not why we have this consensual age of consent.
Okay.
It's more the way that some people that I actually follow and watch videos have treated this subject. I think that is the new myth. You know, the pedophilia conversation is because
Oh
there
yeah.
is so many people online that just talk about, for example, finding out, for example, I mentioned earlier, the NAMLA, the association.
NAMLA, yes.
Yeah.
National Association Man Love I forget.
Man Love Boys Association, something like
Man
that.
Boy Love Association, yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, and
Not a fan of them.
so, for example, one day I saw someone that I follow that is Shuon Head. You might not know her. She's American, but and talks about news and politics. But she found this number or some other guy online that is advocating for pedophilia in some way, because they say like, oh, the age of consent, and I really like boys, and this is just a bunch of guys that decide that the age of consent is this, and I don't agree. And so I think there is a lot to talk about why we have those parameters of age and how it's all about public health and protecting our kids. But the most important thing that I think is in pedophilia nowadays is to not do not create this feeling for pedophiles in the way that they are evil people and marginalize people that have this type of thoughts. Because my way of understanding is like that these people suffer from a problem. They have a disease, they need treatment, they need therapy, they need help. And when we just demonize them, it's like, oh, pedophiles are just terrible people that should be all killed or jailed. We make them hide. Making them hide, it's not the way to treat or to help them.
Agreed. Shove them underground.
So if you marginalize them, we're going to just cause them to hide themselves, not look for help, and maybe end up being child molesters. And that is the crime. Because when a lot of people talk about definitions and so, oh, pedophiles are criminals, pedophiles are evil, pedophiles are terrible people. It's like, no, you know that a lot of pedophiles might be at this moment struggling with their situation, with their condition.
Hmm.
And they need help. I don't think they should
Yes.
be just pushed away from society in that way.
There's another level of help that I want to bring up here, and it does address this. I'm not going too far off subject. I think in our society, at least in this country, we demonize sex. And if sex is demonized, if somehow or other it's not easy to have sex, I wonder if at least some percentage of people who are pedophiles, if they had an easier access to sex, would they necessarily choose to go with the direction of sex that's easier for them, taking advantage of somebody who's indefensible and incapable of defending themselves?
I see. I don't know. I don't know if there is. I don't know if it's someone that would. I don't know. Is that like such an opportunistic sex? Like, oh, it's just because I had the chance, and not that because I don't think people would do that. You know, I don't think people behave sexually like that. It's like, oh, I just need so much that oh yeah, I'm gonna do that.
It depends on the
They're
level of your
urgent.
drive. I'm very driven to.
I remember being a teenager, and if you'd have hold still and not fight me, I'd jumped all over you. It was.
Yeah.
I
talked with his
when I
first
was the
wife, I
teenage
know.
male, I was very willing to anybody who said yes. And I don't think that's a healthy thing overall, because there's so much relationship stuff. There's a lot of relationship dynamics that go on, and so as a young man, I made bad choices.
But that is a
Yeah.
good question to see if there is like because maybe that is the point. Like what I see, at least for the now I'm gonna talk other difficult problem. For example, like what happens, for example, in European countries that have suffered from a lot of rape on the poles, kids being raped by immigrants, refugees.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I was an immigrant, but it's more like refugees, and it comes to their own culture because they don't think boys are kids. They already consider boys adults.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
that's
they
like
have
I think it's
a different
9.
line.
You know, Islamists believe the boys are adults at the age of 9 and girls at 15. I think.
Okay.
It's a different time for boys and girls. When I talked to Armin Navab, he taught me those things. Yeah, so you go to those polls and they are abusing the kids, the boys, men, not even the girls. Like so adult men abusing young boys in the polls, and most of the time some of the times they say like, oh yeah, it was just a sexual urgency.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
I'd just like to point out that that's a societal thing that has come about, and that it's not actually part of the religion. It's I don't know what you call them, but just say a priest in the Muslim tradition, I'm pretty sure would tell anybody involved in their group not to do that. But in the society, the civil organization of people who happen to have that primary religion in their society, there's things that are different than what the priesthood might say is appropriate.
Oh yeah. I don't know if they're gonna. I know that I've read some of the abusers' reports saying that it was just an urgency, and the idea of the religiosity. It's like what I also have seen, watched, and read is like that the imams on many mosques do tell the followers to gang rape girls so they can turn them into Islamists. Because if you raped by 10 Islamists, you become Islamists that automatically. And that's why the gang rapes are so high in Sweden and other European countries, because they do the rape.
I'm just fearful that sounds a lot like it could be propaganda. I don't know one way or the other, but
yeah. In
Yeah,
any case,
some
I'm
people.
completely clear
Yeah,
about my opinion about it, whether it comes from the church or the state or the
Yeah.
or
yeah,
the
it's wrong, anyways.
Yeah.
local thing. It's like
Yeah.
there was one example where there was an immigrant refugee waiting in essentially waiting in line to come in, and he grabbed a young boy. I'm going to say 9, but I could totally have that wrong. Took him into the bathroom and butt raped him. And then when they caught him, he said, "Yeah, but I haven't had sex in like several days. I needed it." And that was his defense. I'm where do I
Yeah.
start? It doesn't matter to me whether that came from the imam or the culture or the whatever. That he even thought that should be a defense
Yeah, that
tells me
would
that
be an
there's a
excuse.
real teaching problem. There's a real cultural problem.
Yeah.
And whether the kid was even underage, if the kid didn't have a choice about it, and he was forced by somebody who was physically just stronger and forced to teach him.
Yeah,
Just no.
and the most problem with that is definitely the idea of I'm gonna bring this as an excuse that should be taken serious, as like this is.
Exactly. That's broken.
Yeah. So I do think that is like the problem is the teaching, but also it is something morally personal, individual for sure. And they try to excuse with the someone told me it was okay. But it is all in the individual back. For sure. One of the things that I usually talk about how I think those people do have a problem when talking about pedophiles is because like we understand that's like yeah, you could be, and I think he brought a good point on talking about how people cannot get sex sometimes easily, or some people want to actually. The next conversation would be about this. Some people nowadays still want to demonize and ban or prosecute the sexual workers, only fans or whatever that exists. I'm very libertarian on like, you know what? If someone wants to sell their body, and there is someone that wants to buy their body, and they are consensual in their deal, whatever. I'm totally fine. I don't think should have a government to come and stop them. But we always talk about consent, and when you talk about kids, it's because we have recognized that they don't have this power, this capacity to consent such a thing that is the sexual act. And not even talking about how I think the people would be broken to be like, oh, I so need sex and I'm gonna have sex with a kid, because the sex performance for me, it's something that is clearly related and very involved with the look. That's why we talk about how the sexual preference is out of the person, because it is in the person, but it's the desire of a third partner or partners. So it's about the characters of the partner and not in yourself anymore. Okay. And thinking of that is like, what is sexual characters that we get when we mature? So
Could you mute your microphone while you're not talking? I'm getting a lot of something.
I don't know what's going on, but I'm getting selected very sensitively, and I don't know how to fix it.
Okay. If you tap on your screen, there's a mute button on the lower left.
I don't have it.
Hold on, I'm grabbing the mouse and we'll get this. Right. You want to be him muted?
I want him muted except when he's talking. I want him to be able to unmute, because I'm getting a feedback that's stepping all over.
Oh, she did it.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, show him how he can unmute himself if he needs.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I heard there was some like a back or return, something like that. That's nice. Thank you very much.
You and I are both using headphones. He's not, and so far it hasn't been a problem, but now it suddenly is.
Yeah, no problem. So where was talking about the sexual the sexual characters on people develop with the hormonal development. And so in teenagehood we have these sexual characters that show up: the hairs, the breasts, the hips, the changing the body that makes it appealing sexually. So
Yes,
for someone to actually look at a kid that doesn't have those characters and is like, I'm gonna fuck it just because it has a hole, you know, it is pretty kind of sick in some way,
maybe.
you know. And that's why I talk about, I think pedophiles need to have, I don't think an education, because if it's natural desire, it might be yes, variation of what is the normal, but we do set limits of what is the limit of normal and what
Absolutely.
is disease. And I
I
think
don't think the desire is all that weird. When I look at males and females, when I look at amongst animals that are not humans, there's a strong desire on the male's part to know that they are the father of the child. And one of the ways to work that out is to be the first and only, to seek a virgin bride, if you will. And the easiest way to have a virgin is to have one that's so young that they couldn't have had any experience before. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm saying this is a natural, normal thing in human sexual drive. We don't want to accept it. We don't want to tolerate it. But I think for someone to admit, wow, that really young, skinny thing walking down the model, you know, Victoria's Secret, looking, are they actually legal or do they just look legal? You know, we have societal limits on what's allowed. And I don't want to shame somebody because they get an erection looking at somebody who's 16, 15, whatever. I get that. It makes sense. Don't do anything about it. Don't water that seed. Because I already gave my 3 reasons.
It's great. It is. And I loved your arguments. Were really strong on that. I think they are totally like the hammer, the trial hammer to close the case on pedophilia is wrong. And men, you know, and we all talking about like sexual performances do consent. So we are like not for any type of abuse. And when we talk about abuse, I think we go through the next conversation, that is the sex work, because a lot of
Sex
people
workers, yes.
have the
I'm very pro sex worker.
I'm very pro, but
Yes.
the people that fight sex workers, they have a myth inside their head that they believe sex workers, pornography, and
Have no
masturbation
choice.
or abuse, that those things promote somehow psychologically, you know, underground. People watch those things and consume those things, and then they would somehow become violent or bad or have problems. And I do not agree or empathize with this type
I've
of
known
idea,
many
because I
people
think
who are sex workers in person, and I have never noted that this was something that harmed them. Now, things about it could harm them. I knew a sex worker who got in legal trouble, and that was a big fucking harm, no question. But it wasn't about the sex. It was about the laws they broke, or the laws that somebody thought they broke, or something like that. I don't have a problem. Now, I'm kind of libertarian in the regard that I think that if there is not an identifiable victim that is not the perpetrator, you cannot have a crime. So I would say legalize drugs. Sure, of course. If you want to kill yourself with drugs, I want to warn you. I want there to be warning labels. I want you to be completely clear about it. But if you want to do it, I don't want to stop you. Same thing with sex. Same thing with I think going against sex work is restraint of trade.
I'm a little bit okay with going against violent video games, but you know, so it's silly that our society tells us that violent video games are moderately okay and sex is no, don't do that. It's terrible.
But I have an argument for you against you're against video games, because what we recognize is that society wants to stop us from doing dangerous things. So it is really dangerous to go outside with a gun and shoot in the air, you know, do games and stuff. So video games is to fulfill our intellect need of doing it. We want to go outside, paintball, shoot people, go to the fields and shoot those targets. So we can't. It's too dangerous. That's why we're doing the video games. And I think it's a great way to replace, entertainment. And I do not agree. It's the same idea of thinking like, oh, you're going to watch pornography and then later you're going to start just being violent because you watch pornography. Because that is actually the argument of the Brazilian people that hate me when I talk about how masturbation is something natural, normal. It can be bad for you as anything else in the planet. Anything that you overuse and that you exclusively only use that and too much will be bad to you. But their main problem with masturbation is because masturbation and pornography, they believe that, oh, I'm going to watch this porn and later this will not be enough. So I will change modality, or I'll change my sexuality. I'll become violent. I'll watch other types of porn because it's like an addiction that you just need to use more.
I need to rise to
more.
the
Something like
rise the weirdness in order to make it
the
fun.
entrance door for other addictions.
Gateways. I want to speak to the audience for a moment. I'm going to speak directly into the camera and say, if you watch porn, you support sex workers. Those people are being paid to have sex for your pleasure. You are paying a sex worker, maybe just through advertisement if you're doing it free. But that's okay. Morally, you're paying a sex worker and you should be okay with that.
That's definitely true. And it's fine because the girl is there doing what she wants. Is everything consensual?
As long as she is, yes.
Yeah.
All the people in there, even the crew.
It's just like what I told you, or I don't know. I just talked to so many people. Maybe I did not tell you this yet, but the problem with the people that have problem with pornography and masturbation, mainly the ones that tell me I cannot talk about the subject because I don't have a penis, and they believe girls don't fap. They would.
Oh gosh.
They believe girls can. And I was. So what I was telling is because they like, look at the numbers, and if you look at the numbers, girls do not fap and girls do not masturbate on the data. But it's just like that we actually know girls lie much more than guys.
Yeah, if the numbers say that 80% of guys fap and 60% of women fap, that means 20% of guys lie and 40% of women lie.
That's true.
Now I'm pushing it, but
there is such a thing about like the numbers of partners. They always say that the guys always lie for more and the girls always lie for less. When you ask about the number of partners, like how many partners you had, and the girls like 10.
Except
like,
Kimberly,
okay, 30.
She doesn't lie about that. Except Kimberly, she doesn't lie about that. She actually knows exactly.
Oh, she's muted.
She's muted, that's true. I'm just going to say that she knows exactly and can tell me all the names of all of her partners for her entire life. She knows who all of them are.
Tell us, Kim. Do you have a list?
No, she doesn't have to.
No, does she have a list? That's how she keeps track?
I have a list.
Oh, that's awesome. I used to do that. But then I thought that was like, I don't know. Did not want anybody to find it out.
The number's like too high.
Yeah, when the numbers are getting too high, I was like, I don't know what. I'm like kind of ashamed or shy of it. Anybody find it. So I stopped.
I can just barely hear Naya.
What did she say? Can
you want to come closer?
I don't want anyone to know about that.
There was a question about strange opportunities of sudden experiences with people she doesn't actually know the name of. I think.
The question was,
Something
do
like
you
that.
have to name a partner if you don't know their name?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, I actually had the trouble of going back to the list when I decided to stop it. And then I started looking at names that I was like, really? I don't even know who this person is or remember the face. So I was like, yeah, I stopped that. Doesn't make any more sense. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be back. Just a sec.
Okay, we're back.
I'm back.
And then he put decoy on the camera.
Oh.
Hey, Dali, put it back. She didn't get to see. Hey, Dali. Bring
yes?
decoy back. She
Bring
missed
back
it.
the baby.
Okay.
Bring the baby back.
What's the-
So cute.
Disturb him.
So yeah, guys, a lot of people are fighting sex workers and what they call PMO. I think is pornography, masturbation, and what is the other thing? Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah. We tried to make that not happen, but it surprised us.
I went to collect eggs and one of them was empty.
Oh.
Uh-huh, she's tiny. She has more feathers than the last time I saw her.
Yeah, when I had my chickens, I happened to have 2 or 3 from them.
Okay.
Yeah. So I need to let you guys go because we
Yes,
all
thank you.
want to watch the
Yes.
the
Gotta watch the rocket
launching.
launch.
Yeah. And but thank you very much you all for being here, for talking about this. Let's try to get together again. I
Mhm.
ask you, Dali, at
Right.
least to come to watch with me and talk a little bit about meaning of life.
That's fine.
A lot of people sending me questions. One guy specific sending me message saying, challenging me to talk about the atheist meaning of life.
Sure.
That atheists don't have, the lack of meaning of life on atheist life. And I was like, that's not such a thing. So yeah, I would love to have you and maybe talk about other things. I will let you guys go, even if we did not go through everything, porn, masturbation and everything, but I think we all very consonant, and whoever wants to talk about this, leave comments. We're gonna
Mhm.
reply. If there is anything that I don't know that is about poly, I can pass you the questions, Dali, and you answer, and then I quote your answers
Okay.
back to them.
Sure. Also, if you're going to publish it on YouTube, I'll be happy to when you publish it, engage in the comment section and answer any questions directly that are addressed to me. No problem.
Yeah, I'm about to upload the video from yesterday because
Ooh,
I
already?
finished
Very
that.
nice.
Yeah, I finished that really late yesterday. That's why I was everything late today, because I was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I did not have chance to upload because I have to make thumbnails and make the
Yes.
picture. So I will be uploading that while I'm editing this one. And yes, if you want a version to upload later in a channel whenever you feel free. It's both.
Okay.
It's a shared rights video
Thank you.
for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I don't have a channel that I'm
Whenever you can feel free.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that I necessarily want to. I really like being part of a support crew for something larger. I want to be part of the street epistemology thing, supporting Cordial Curiosity and Anthony Magnabosco and the others. And I don't actually have a desire for myself to be a focus.
Yeah, a public person.
Yeah, that's not part of my meaning of life. So,
Okay.
whereas, for others, it is. And I want to support that because I like what they're doing.
That's really nice. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It was great
Kim.
meeting you
Thanks, love.
and conversing with you.
It was
I
a
have
great time.
very little limitation in the quantity of opinions I have. So hit me up anytime you like.
Yeah, let's talk more about this. If you guys want to join, we can later talk about more of this. And yeah, definitely was such a fun time. Thank you very much, Kim.
Okay.
Thank you, Dali. Thank you, Paul. And I hope, what is the name of your other girl? I
Naya.
forgot.
Naya.
Naya. I hope
Naya,
Naya gets better.
which is-
Oh, Naya. Thank you very much